Okay, so just recapping the from the stomach, so although that you don't have that in the moment response, you can lean into your circle. And we're moving now onto the ego center. So the ego center is the will center, the heart center. It's a motor center, and it's the center of resource. It's connected to value and worth and motivation and willpower. So it's kind of like the energetic bank. Some also call it the center for wealth. Feminine and masculine integrate to create wealth, well-being, and health. And it's very much connected to sustainability. The energetics of this center is community, integrity, and value. Now, again, in this chart, it's an undefined ego center. So because this center is undefined, it means that there's inconsistent access to the energy within the center. So having an undefined ego center means that the motivation and the willpower is not consistent. You are designed to feel with motivation and willpower. You're not designed to be motivated all the time. You're designed to see how motivation feels in your body and work with it when the motivation comes. An undefined ego center doesn't always know what it wants or what the heart wants, but that's like how you are designed to be, and you have your circle to move back into that. So the knowing what you want and what the heart wants comes with the waves of the motivation, the willpower. They're designed to work together. You really need to rest. Like, everybody should rest and take moments of rest to be in that moment of action, that moment of flow. But with an undefined ego center, you really, really do need to rest so that you can fill that bank of energy. Yes, you have the circle, and the circle is that life force energy that we know can't go if it's not aligned. So if you're trying to go with the open solar plexus, it's going to deplete that circle energy and lead to burnout. So it really is about working again with your strategy and your authority. And this is why strategy and authority is so important, and one of the first things to really focus on in human design, because whether you're defined or undefined, and the conditioning that you hold in the centers, you can always lean back into your strategy and your authority to make aligned decisions. So knowing when to rest and really being able to lean in the rest is so important when you have an undefined ego center, so that you can really fill that bank of energy. And really important to know that your value is not determined by motivation or achievement, to really remind yourself and keep dropping into, like, I'm valuable because I exist. I've got a toddler and she is worthy of everything just because she is here on this planet. And somewhere along the way, we forget that. And with the undefined ego, you can tend to forget that more often. So it's really remembering, my achievements don't make me more valuable. My perceived success does not make me more valuable. Like, I am worthy just because I am me. With having an undefined ego center, you may have this real desire to be a willful powerhouse, to just like keep going, and like you may have this kind of badge of honor of resilience and nothing getting you down. But that is out of alignment for you. You're not designed to be this willful powerhouse. You really are designed to flow and rest, and recognize that ambition and desires don't always weigh the work that you've been conditioned to believe that they do. That you don't have to keep pushing through and ignoring your body response of, I need to rest and I need to stop. You really have to allow that cycle of motivation, and especially with having the undefined root as well, that's really, really important. As always, an undefined center can hold the potential for more conditioning, where they're not self-same. So imposter syndrome can be really strong in an undefined ego center, comparing yourself to others and always feeling unvaluable and unworthy. And whenever we are comparing ourselves, especially to other women, that can really highlight some unhealed divine feminine energy. And in the work that I do, can also lean very heavily with the witch rune. So if we have an undefined ego center, we're going to feel that stronger. And it's really being aware of, when I'm comparing myself to somebody else and I'm dropping into that competition and comparison, I am completely coming away from, I am valuable just because I exist. they are valuable and worthy just because they exist. There is no comparison here. There is no competition. There is no needing to be better than. I just need to fully remember who I am and drop into the magic and the power of that. Going hand in hand with the imposter syndrome and the comparing is really trying to prove yourself and your value and the worth from a disempowered state. Value me, value me, value me, because I'm working so hard, because I've got so much I've got so much to give, and I can go above and beyond. And obviously with the circle and the caregiver and having this open ego center and the emotional open as well, that's kind of like a little recipe of people pleasing, giving everything you've got, even if you haven't got it to give, because someone else thinking that you are worthy and more valuable, we can start to believe will make us feel more worthy and valuable. But we know that that isn't the case. It might be a momentary thing where if someone gives us praise that we feel good, but it's not consistent. We really have to give that to ourselves. The self-worth, self-value we've already got into. You know, there is more potential for conditioning of not feeling good enough when you have a open ego center. Codependent, we can be looking outside of themselves for validation. External validation for worth and value, as mentioned above, and pushing to be motivated instead of slowing and allowing yourself to rest and be motivated when the motivation comes. And if you can do that, then it's going to be a stronger motivation. Everything has seasons. So you're really designed to feel the seasons in the heart center. It doesn't affect your capacity to make money. It doesn't affect your capacity to be successful. When you work with the energy and then you alchemize it and you're in a line and you lean to your strategy authority, is this the right thing for me? Is this the right time? And this is where the circle is really, really important. And going through that procedure of, is this a circle? Yes. Does this light me up? Yes. Okay, brilliant. So I'm going to wait for the response. I'm going to send it out there to the universe, and having an open head, and we'll come to the open head, is a beautiful gift with the circle, because you don't have to find the answers. You can send it out to the universe and, you know, give me the answer, give me something to respond to. So when you are feeling something and you don't know if it's the right time, and you've got the motivation, or you're in that motivation period of the ego center, that's always go back to the strategy, always go back to the authority. I've had this idea, it feels really good in my body, I've got that circle, hell yes, I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to wait for the universe to give me something to respond to. So if I'm thinking, and this is where it's caught me out in the past, I'll get this beautiful intuitive idea download from spirit for a program to put out, and I'll be so excited out, and I'll get that circle like yes, 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 and I won't even like put it out on Facebook or put it out on my socials. I'm not at that step yet. I'm just really committing to doing it. I might write it down in a journal. I might write it down like notes in docs, or I might speak it to somebody who's close to me. And then the universe will start suddenly showing me courses that are very similar to what I want to create all over the place. And in the past, and this is where I would have dropped into the disempowerment of the undefined ego, I would have gone, I'm not meant to do that, because people who are more successful therefore have more followers, so they must be better at what they do than I am, because they've got more followers and more people recognize them as someone to go to. No one's going to want to buy from me. No one's going to want to come into my content. And if they do, they're going to think, who the fuck is she to be doing this? And I wouldn't put it out there. But what I was being given was that it's meant to go out, because I was getting all of these things to respond to from the universe, and I was feeling in my body, yeah, this still feels incredible, but my fear came in, and the undefined spleen and the undefined ego and the conditioning in them that hadn't been alchemized made me think, oh, this is too scary. I'm not worthy. Nobody would want me. I'm not going to do it. What I should have done is leaned into my circle and then tried it on. I should have put it out there and said, I'm thinking about doing this, and then waited for people to come back to me, not for them to tell me whether to do it or not, or whether they're interested or not, but again, to check into that. Does this still feel good in the right time? And then put it out there. And it's really important, especially with having the undefined spleen, that you don't think that fear means you're not meant to do it. there's always going to be fear. It's that sacral response, and that's why your sacral is so, so, so important. And then we're moving into the G center, that yellow one in the very center of the chart. So the ego is part of the heart, and the G center is also part of the heart. The G center is the place of purpose. There is only one happiness in this life, to love and be loved. So you can see where the heart comes in again now. This is the center of identity and self, how we see, view, and feel ourselves. It's our magnetic monopole, so where we can manifest from in the G center. It's the center of love, identity, direction. So the law of attraction and manifestation belong to the G center. It's like this energetic exchange with the universe. And because the center is defined, somebody with a defined center would have a really strong sense of identity. They would know who they are. They're probably less likely to be influenced by others. And they are real beacons when they are in the power of that center and not in the conditioning, and not in the conditioning of the other centers. So in this chart, in the defined G center, there may be some nuances from conditioning from the solar plexus and the ego that would affect how this person sees and views themselves, and conditioning from early life. So it's really checking in with how empowered am I in this center? How strongly do I feel this sense of identity? And if I don't, really like tapping in and doing some activation work there and journaling of who am I? What do I want? And connecting with your why, because this is the center of direction as well. But if you don't know where you're going, you've got nowhere to head. So this is a really powerful center to have defined, because it means that you are less influenced when you don't fall into that feeling other people's emotion and adapting who you are in response to that. And this is where the human design chart, it's really important that you look at the chart as a whole, because having a defined G center is affected by having a open solar plexus and a open ego. So you do have consistent access to the energy in the center. You have consistent access to having this really strong sense of identity, to being connected with direction and being less influenced by others. So you'll have a strong sense. And depending on other things going on in the chart, and we're not going to go into a lot of detail into the circuitry, that will be a sense of your values and your morals and being able to stand in, no, I don't agree with that. Because you have this really strong sense of who you are and what you stand for and what your beliefs are. You've got so much love to give, and that again with the sacral is a really beautiful gift, because you have so much love to give, and you have the capacity to give that love when that love giving is aligned and not dropping into that caregiving people pleasing. So you know how you like to give and receive love through this center. And again, sometimes that can be affected by the solar plexus, because you're going to know how you like to give love and receive love, and then may give love in a way that other people don't receive them, and feel that in the solar plexus, and that again might affect how you show up. There is not, in an undefined center, as always, and I'll keep saying this, there is more potential for conditioning. That does not mean that conditioning are not self-themes. And in the defined centers, they can be. So it's really important to be aware of those and look out for those. If you're questioning your lovability, am I lovable? Do I define myself by relationships? It's showing that there's a little bit of not self, a little bit of conditioning held in the center. And again, this will be affected by the other centers. I definitely had a lot of codependency and feeling unlovable because of the undefined ego and the undefined solar plexus. Not feeling accepted for who you are and what you're here for, and then feeling like that's kind of internalized and am I acceptable? Attaching labels to who they are and looking for a fixed identity. We live in a world of neurodivergence, so especially for me in this center, that not feeling accepted who I am and struggling with the nuances of neurodivergent, and thinking if I have a label for my neurodivergence, at least then I will know what I'm working with. So there is this need for labels when it's in the conditioning of the not self, forcing directions. So when you have this defined center, you're designed to lean into the strategy and philosophy 10,000% to not force that direction. Obviously, if it's defined, you're going to have a stronger sense of a direction, but it still doesn't mean that you won't have conditioning here where you doubt your direction, especially in terms of what goes on in the chat. Open spleen, fear might make you doubt your direction, not knowing if you've got the correct timing, and the pressure from the undefined root will all affect how the defined center shows up. There is a little bit of codependency in this center as well, if it's in the not self conditioning, so defining who you are based on who you are around and adapting who you are to who you are around. So it's being really aware of, do I only feel lovable if I'm loved, and do I only feel lovable if I'm others, not knowing who I am without being around certain people. There's the potential to being addicted to love, that codependency. I know I don't know who I am if I'm not loved. I need to seek that externally rather than give it to myself, and numbing out from feeling what's going on for everyone else. This obviously is going to be affected even deeper by the open solar plexus, because feeling other people's emotions as your own makes you want to numb out. So that is the conditioning to be aware of in the G center. And then we're going to move up into the throat, and here the throat is defined. And obviously in terms of human design, all energy is moving towards the throat center to be expressed, to be spoken out, to be manifested into the world and brought into reality. So this is the center of communication, expression, and manifestation, and where all energy is moving to. So whether it's coming down from the head or up from the root, all energy is coming and moving to the throat to be spoken into existence, spoken out into the world. Having a defined throat center is that you are here to speak and share your truth unfiltered. So obviously that's going to be affected by which other centers are defined and undefined, because if you speak your truth unfiltered and you have an open solar plexus, you are going to feel in your body how your words land. So people with a defined throat and an open solar plexus in early age might learn to water down or filter what they're saying, because they don't want to hurt someone else and feel that physical hurt from what they're saying. It is to be shared in the first person, to express and communicate and move energy into action, bring it into the world. So just because there is consistent access here, because it's defined, it doesn't mean that you can talk all the time. It's like, oh, my throat is defined, I mean, it's talk all the time. No, that's not, it's not the case. Like the say, well, it's defined, it's got all this energy, isn't that? So manifestors and manifesting generators, this chart's manifesting generator, are motorized. So you're a national initiator of conversation. So having a defined throat and the defined circle means, and you've got that pure Mani-Gen cycle, means that you can very easily initiate conversation. To be aware of in the not self and the conditioning of this gate is needing to shout to be recognized. Even though your throat is defined, if you need to shout to be recognized, you are not in alignment and empowerment in that throat center. There's a little bit of a nuance here with this particular center, and although I'm not going to go into all the circuits and all the connections, there is the connection here, which is the genius freak. Now, this is really important in terms of the message and the timing, and this is also affected by other things in the chart. So because this chart is a 6-3 profile, that will affect how things land as well, because a 6 is very much always seeing into the future. They can see light years ahead, and we'll go into that in more detail. But having this defined throat center and being able to see things light years ahead, you are designed to speak that from the throat, but the timing is really important. The audience is really important, because this line of the genius freak, it's either going to land and it's going to hit right, and they're going to think, wow, she's a genius. She's like activating in me things that I need to know, or it's going to be a case of this person is like a freak. Absolute crazy, hasn't got a clue freak. And working with the gifts of the throat and speaking unfiltered will help that. Speaking in the right audience, being around the right people, trusting if what you're saying is in alignment is going to help that genius freak line. If you are shouting to be recognized, then you are not using your throat appropriately. It's not the right audience, it's not the right time, you aren't in alignment with what you're saying. If you're needing to fill silences and silences can feel really uncomfortable, this is another sign of disempowerment. Not sharing at all, so unsure about what to say or saying nothing or not knowing what's acceptable to say is a sign that there is conditioning in the throat. Unsure about how and what to say and how this will be perceived by others is a sign that there is disempowerment in the throat. And for me, having the undefined solar plexus and the undefined heart center has really affected the conditioning in my throat. I've really had to unpeel that, and I guess being middle child syndrome, shouting to be heard, and the feeling of not saying anything at all. So there's the introvert and the extrovert. And there was a thing I seen the other day that was like, people think they're introverted, but they just want a sense of peace. With the right people where they feel peace, they'll be extroverted. And that is very much me. And I think this is very much the case of the defined throat with the nuances of the undefined centers, that depending on the company I'm in, I will speak freely and you'll find me very chatty. In other company, I might not say anything at all because it doesn't feel energetically aligned, or I don't feel safe. And it's really dropping into, am I staying quiet because it serves me and it's empowered and it's aligned for me to stay quiet, or am I staying quiet out of fear in case I'll be judged? And again, it's leaning into and working with the conditioning in that undefined solar plexus and that undefined ego to work out when it's aligned to stay quiet, when it's aligned to speak. So next we are moving up into the ajna. Second from the top, the triangle. In this chart, the ajna is defined. So the ajna is responsible for observing the world and making perceptions about that. Like, yeah, this is really cool. This is just amazing. Like, look at this world. Look at the tree outside the house. Like, wow. It's awareness and processing and the divine translator. So it's the center for insight, processing information, translating the information from the divine, and formulating opinions, then pushing that down into the throat so it can be spoken out into the world. So with this center defined, your opinions and points of view are to be shared when asked. Okay, that's really, really important. Standing in the middle of the high street on a box, spouting out my opinions isn't going to get me anywhere, especially with the genius speaker. Probably going to give me the like, what the hell is she doing? It really is about sharing your opinions and your points of view when you are asked. In terms of business and the online world, if you have a business page and people are following you, if you have a group, then you've been asked, people are in your world. So sharing your opinions in that way, the people that are in your world have chosen to want your opinion. People that you're working with, clients, then you've been asked. The information sense, so it takes information, it processes it, stores it, and then it gets like, it really likes to be really analytical to take this information and process it and make sense of it and form opinions. It's like the computer of human design, and then taking that into concepts and frameworks and tasks, simplifying that down so that the person can understand it and then be spoken through the throat. So you'll know if you're in alignment with the center and with your throat center, if what you're speaking is being understood and heard, because you should be really easily able to simplify all of these things that you're taking in to speak in a simplified way for people to understand. The beauty in this and the beauty that I find with the sacral, the G center, the ajna in the throat, is being able to really see with the direction in the G center. When I sit and I work with somebody and we go through their jobs and the history and they talk to me about their life, I get this real sense of their identity and what they're here for, and it helps them turn that into a course, a framework that's marketable. And that's a really, really beautiful gift from the way that these centers work together. And I didn't realize until coming into human design that that's what I was doing and why I was doing it, but it felt amazing in my, like, it's so aligned. The conditioning in this center to be aware of is lack of certainty, so can create paralysis in decision making. Obviously, again, this can be affected by the other centers, if you're having a moment of disempowerment in the ego center and you don't feel worthy, you're not going to feel certain in taking action. If you're feeling the emotions of others and someone is triggered by something that you're doing or saying, that might affect the paralysis in decision making, the undefined route. So not knowing when to do it and the pressure of doing all of the things all the time and the fear and the spleen. So it's really sitting with like this lack of certainty and dropping into that sacral response of, is this for me? Does it light me up? Is this the right time? And going through that process of the sacral. The other conditioning to be aware of is trying to make sense or order of what is happening. So really trying to make sense of everything in the world, like why is it happening? What is it happening for? And how this showed up for me in my conditioning is a blessing, but also can be overwhelming in terms of believing that everything is working for you. So when things go wrong, maybe giving it more time and attention than it needs. Maybe it's just like, oh, okay, that happened, meant to happen, move on. But then like researching for the meaning. What does it mean? What's the conditioning in there? Is there any limiting beliefs? Is there? And I would tend to go down this rabbit hole of healing. And sometimes doing that and working in the shadow is really necessary. Other times it's like, you don't need to give this as much attention as you are. Just let it go. Just choose your letting it go. You don't need to go all the way into the past to dag it up or go into like 10,001 journaling questions. Sometimes that's appropriate, but not always. So that's how the conditioning would show up for me. And this thing of how do I make this information work for me can be a conditioning in the sense of trying to force the energy through training and trying to make it work because they think they need it. And again, this was conditioning that showed up for me that I would intuitively know things and get things. And then with the open ego, think, I've got no right to know this. I've got no right to have these answers and this level of understanding, and nobody is going to buy it from me, as in like not purchase it, but like no one's going to believe me or feel it because I don't have this certificate to say that I've done it and I don't have this training. Then I would go and do training from a disempowered place, not be in alignment with the training. And it wouldn't help me. I still wouldn't feel good enough. I still wouldn't feel like the training was right because most of what being said was out of alignment with my truth. So not that the person delivering the training was wrong, but it just wasn't a match for me. So of course, there would be this like, oh, this doesn't feel any better because now I feel like what's coming through for me is wrong because it's different to them, but it still really feels like a truth for me. So it's just being aware and always remembering that also although you have consistent access to the energy, it doesn't mean there isn't conditioning in there. And sometimes and often for me, the conditioning in the defined centers has been so much more powerful than the conditioning in the undefined centers because it's affected how I view the things that I'm here to share and the gifts that I brought through and the way I share them. And the other not so theme of the yajna, which is this huge layer of conditioning for me that I've had to pull and pick and there'll still be layers underneath, is worrying about being challenged over your opinions. That you don't have enough information to back up and validate what you think, feel, believe. Again, that sent me down a rabbit hole of more training and more training. And there's certain training that I've done, like EFT, where I have done 3 different trainings with 3 different trainers because I still didn't feel good enough, like I know enough, like people were going to believe and buy what I said because I hadn't done enough. And the funny thing in that instance was one of the people that I trained with, I did the level 1 with them and never went on to the level 2. I'd already done 2 other trainings for EFT. And whenever I then would share EFT, they would go in the group of our cohort and this big long post about ethics and not doing something you weren't trained to do. And it really hit me hard for a long time. So every time I thought, why wouldn't that person just come to me and say, I'm concerned that you're using this modality without having enough training or enough whatever to cover you for insurance? And it just again was like it wasn't in alignment for me to do that training. It wasn't in alignment for me to be trained by someone who wasn't able to have that conversation with me and did it in a passive aggressive manner. And nothing against that person, like they've helped lots of people, their knowledge is fantastic. It was a lesson for me. So yes, that's the disempowerment that can be in the Ashnet. Finally, we're in the crown. Now, in this chat, the crown is undefined, the head center. So filled with questions and not answers. This is the pressure center. So we know that all energy in human design is moving to the throat. So there's pressure from the root to send the energy up. There's pressure from the head to send that energy down. So it's pressuring energy into the ajna so that it can go through the throat. The experience of this pressure is obviously different for whether you are defined or undefined. Undefined, we know, do not have consistent access to the energy in this center. Now, this is the interface center. This really is the kind of interface, energetic, I don't know what you want to call it, like veil between the human and the divine. So between our human intelligence and our divine intelligence. This is like the little gateway, the little energetic veil. In an undefined center like this one, you are very much influenced by external ideas. So having to interact with the world, the answers and the inspirations, you don't have access to that on your own. Sitting in a room on your own, you're not going to have access to the answers and inspiration on your own in the way that a defined head would. But you're not meant to. You're perfectly designed. You're meant to throw that out to the universe, to not try and search for the answers to all of the questions, but say, okay, I've got this question. Bring me an answer, please. Like, or go somewhere where you will feel more inspired and you will feel more lit up, going to a cafe where you might have defined head centers around, and that will give you the external ideas to come in and drop in from the interaction with the world, because you are designed to interact with the world. Obviously, today we're in a digital world, so sending that out to the universe can bring the answers in the strangest of ways. You could be in a Zoom room, you could be in a Facebook group and have access to that inspiration. Discernment is really, really key with the undefined head center. You need to go out into the world to interact to get the answers that you seek. You can't find them on your own. It's not going to happen. You gain inspiration from being out in the world. So you probably will find, if you are in a cafe or you're around other people, like creative ideas come in thick and fast. And it's, again, being discerning, because if you're out in the world and you're getting all of these ideas coming in, not all of them will be in alignment. It's dropping back into your strategy and authority. And again, thinking, what is for me? What isn't for me? So being really selective about your inspiration and not being inspired by everything. Like, oh, something new, something new, something new. It's like, is this in alignment? Do I feel this in my circle? Is it a hell yes? Is it mine? If not, okay. Or maybe it's for later, I'll write it down. It's a pressure center, so you can feel under pressure to find the answers, but you shouldn't feel under pressure to find the answers. Obviously, it's also where are you trying to find the answers from and for. So with the open ego and the open solar plexus, are you trying to find the answers to fix someone else's emotional or pain and prevent them and yourself from feeling it? Are you trying to find the answers because you don't feel worthy without the answers? And again, this is conditioning that I definitely carried, trying to be a savior and prevent people from feeling pain, so getting answers for them or doing the research and trying to find the things instead of letting them have their own journey, and also not feeling good enough. I need the answers because what if someone comes and they challenge me from the action and I don't have the answers, all of those things. So use it as a two-way guidance system with the undefined center. As I said earlier, throw the answer back to the divine and the answer will appear in your reality. Being out in the world, in whatever format that is. It could be on Facebook, it could be on Instagram, it could be walking down the street, but the answer will come. Now, one of the beautiful blessings for me with having the open head center is I channel. So when I'm doing meditations and when I am doing healing and energetic healing, I channel from spirit. I channel light language, I channel mediumship, because I have that really open connection to the divine. The disempowerment in this center the conditioning is that you could be more prone to patriarchal conditioning, more prone to not self due to patriarchal conditioning. So lack of focus, doesn't know what to focus on, doesn't have the clarity in what you're focusing on. We've already mentioned the pressure to find the answers, but that can create this real feeling of overwhelming anxiety. So you may be more sensitive to feeling overwhelmed and anxious, especially with the open solar plexus. If you're feeling other people's emotions and that's too much in the body, overstimulation with my open head and open solar plexus is quite a big one for me, because it's open, and if I'm not in control and empowered in that center, it's like a lot of stuff coming in, a lot of stimulus coming in. I can sometimes at the end of the day almost feel like there's a Coke can inside of me that instead of exploding out, it's exploding in. So it's really anchoring in and grounding in and not feeling pressure, especially with the pressure from the root. Sometimes it can feel like it's just, but being really aware and empowered to think, no, I don't need to feel the pressure to keep going from the root, and feel the pressure for the timing, and also feel the pressure to answer everything. It's not my pressure. It's just conditioning. Does this feel aligned? No, then I need to ground. I need to breathe. I need to bring myself into this moment, drop into my chi center, my heart, and just be here. So the squirrel brain going, keeping busy and disconnecting from the divine. So dropping into the heart is dropping into the divine, and that will help you to be more focused, so that you can really lean into the gift of channeling rather than block the channeling. And one of the things that will surefire block my channeling, even when I'm in the middle of it, is allowing my ego, my open ego, and the conditioning in there to rear its head, because I can just be channeling from spirit and it's flowing really easily, and then the ego might pop in and go, who the fuck do you think you are? You're just talking shit. You're just speaking nonsense, making sounds. And it's really anchoring into, no, this is me channeling a beautiful gift. And I'll know when things are overwhelming, because disturbed sleep, feeling overwhelmed easily, and hyper stimulated and overstimulated generally will come in with my open head if I am in the not self and not really anchoring into, I don't need all of the answers. I don't need to feel this pressure to find all of the answers. I don't need to mentally fatigue myself and then that manifests physically in my body. So it's really being aware of that and dropping into the power of who you are, and always going back to that sacral response and your strategy and your authority. The very last thing that we're going to talk about is the profile line. So this is your personality and your design. And they're in relation to these little things here, this 6 and this 3. Now in human design, this side is what the person is most conscious of. So that's why it's their personality. And this is more the unconscious, more to do with the soul, and what people might not be as consciously aware of. The 6 is the line that is first. So the 6 line energy, with the higher number being first, this is self to others. So embodiment of wisdom and leading through wisdom. The 6 line energy that I mentioned earlier has this really powerful insight of seeing light years ahead. They really see the world differently. They have this bird's eye view, and they can see what's going on around them, seeing the future in ways that people don't always see, and then knowing what that means. So lost my train of thought for a second. The 6 line energy is often called the role model, also can be the embodied healer. It really is about 3 stages of life. In the first stage, up to the age of 30, it is very much a kind of 3 line of sailing forward, of experimenting and going out in the world and not being bogged down by restrictions and shoulds and woulds, just really experiencing life, like loving life and learning about the world and really enjoying that. And that usually lasts until about the age of 30, when Saturn returns to the person's chart. Then from the age of 30 to 50, they really take all of the learning from that first 30 years and start turning that into wisdom. And for a lot of people, not just six lines energy, like most people, there is like a huge change around the age of 40 as well. So halfway between the second cycle, you have this huge kind of change of bringing you back into alignment and a real purposeful realignment of what you're supposed to be doing. So between 30 and 50, it really is turning all of that learning into wisdom. And then from 50 plus, it's really embodying that wisdom as the role model, like that crone energy, that sage, sharing that wisdom. So the purpose of the six is to claim your authority and live by your words, like really being embodied. Just saying it and not doing is going to hold no weight with this. It's not going to have people feeling that around you. It's being that embodied leader and living in your highest potential so that you can show others what's available for them and let humanity know what is available for them. So between 30 and 50, it's becoming really grounded in connecting with taking that journey into wisdom so that beyond 50 plus, you can embody it. You don't need to wait around for the ages. It's not like, oh, I can't do anything till I'm 50. I'm not going to have any success till I'm 50. You can have success the whole way through, but it's being really embodied in the energy of stepping into what it looks like to be that embodied leader. What does it look like to be that role model? What does it look like to be in your highest integrity and in your highest alignment? So the 3-line energy is the unconscious part of this chart. So where traditionally it may not be as apparent and felt by the person. The 3-line energy is often called the martyr, but that's not really very empowering. It's better to, nicer ways to think about it is the explorer and the experimenter. Like you literally are here to experiment, explore the world and love doing it and not worry about getting things wrong and making mistakes because it's a really, important part of the process. So the 3-line energy learns through getting involved in life, jumping in and trying it out and feeling forward, like this real trial and error to process the world. They should generally not be afraid to just get stuck in and have fun. And, human design was channeled so that we could help children live within an alignment so they didn't have to go through all this deconditioning. So with having a child with a 3-line energy, it really would be about getting them ready and feeling okay with making mistakes and feeling forward, and that doesn't define them. So to really embrace this 3-line energy, it really is like, oh, well, okay, that didn't work out, but it's not really a failure. I experimented, I explored, I got really, really curious, and something went a little bit wrong. So, okay, I've learned a really valuable lesson the next time it won it. So the purpose is to use your experience and experiments to determine what the next level of possibility is on the material plane. By living life in a 3 energy, you learn feet first. So it's a real group energy. Like I said before, it's designed to fail forward and get really excited about failing so you know what works and you can kind of share what works and what doesn't work so that other people can feel that and move forward with you. Obviously, society has created a lot of conditioning around failure, and that's why I mentioned when human design was bringing a channel that hopefully in the future there won't be this conditioning around failure, especially for 3-line energy, because it's like that's what you're designed to do. You're designed to fall down, to make mistakes, to get curious and it not work out in the way that you wanted it to, so that you can really share that energy and enthusiasm for life with others. So the 3-line energy really does need to jump into the world, experience the world, and explore what the world means to them. And then with the Defined Throat Center, share that with the world. Tell stories, let people know what you're experimenting with, and let them live through you that love of life and the experimentation and the sharing in the journey. So that is your human design chart in terms of your strategy, your authority, your centers, which are defined, undefined, and your profile lines. All of these work together, so no chart is the same. A 6-3 manifesting generator with circle authority could look very different to this, depending on how the which centers are defined, which gates are defined, and how they work together. Getting to grips with your strategy And your authority is the key thing, understanding what it means to be that manifesting generator, that really open, enveloping aura, not filling your aura up with things that are going to block your flow and the things that can come in, and really leaning into that cycle response. Is this a yes for me? Fantastic. Is this a yes for me right now? Okay, so it's definitely yes. I'm really excited. Is this a go right now? I need to wait for that response from the world, and then I need to try it on. The trying on is a really important part of the puzzle. And if you're still aligned after that, then you go. If you have any questions, you know where I am.